What's up, everybody? Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show today. I am Dr. Brad from Macros Inc. We have a bunch of stuff we're covering in the show today. This is maybe going to be one of my favorite episodes we do because we are talking about a topic that every single one of our 30,000 plus clients that we've worked with to date is going to have to deal with at some point, or has dealt with, or is currently dealing with. And so I think this is going to be a super high value episode. Don't miss this one. But before we begin, if you guys could do me a huge favor and just click subscribe to the YouTube channel, helps us with the algorithm, gets you more content, helps us build more value directly to you. So I have a lot of updates, but I'm not going to give you those today because we have a ton of stuff to cover, and I just really want to jump into it. So today we're covering maintenance, and specifically we're going to try to answer the question of what will I do after I reach my weight loss goal? So this is one of the most important questions that people need to ask themselves as they start their weight loss journey, because at some point you have a life after weight loss, right? And that means you need the skills, tools, and mindset to live in maintenance, because that's super important, right? In reality, the weight loss portion of your journey is going to be 10% of your whole life, right? If you spend 6 months or a year, it's going to be, maybe that's 2%, 3%, 4%, 5% of your life. The other 90 plus percent you're going to be spent trying to maintain the progress that you made. So we're going to cover the following topics kind of during the transition from weight loss, and to kind of help you build your toolbox and mindset, to properly prepare for a life of maintaining weight loss and your transformation. So we're going to cover the following topics. We're going to cover transitioning from weight loss to maintenance, preventing rebound, changing your timelines, why your lowest weight isn't your forever weight, finding a new you, setting your window, the problem with compounding, why forever isn't bad, and why you should own your life and then build your life. So let's talk a little bit about transition, because this is generally the first question that people have, and I think one of the most misunderstood questions. So transitioning from weight loss to weight maintenance. Once you've reached your target weight, you'll have to transition from weight loss to maintenance, but how quickly should you reverse to maintenance? Like, should you go quickly? Should you go slowly? Should you set a time frame? Like, what should you do? So there's really two main philosophies for how you go from a deficit to maintenance. One is instantly, so you just stop your diet one day, go straight to maintenance calories the next day. And the other approach is kind of slowly. This is what people have often referred to as reverse dieting, so you kind of slowly work your way back to maintenance. And the honest truth here is that you can do either, right? If you go to true maintenance, if you go from true deficit to true maintenance, you will not gain any body fat. You'll have more energy much more quickly. Your sleep will return to normal faster, and you should look more full, like your muscles will look more full. And your hormones that are kind of depressed or lower during dieting, like thyroid hormone, it'll return to normal much faster. Now, the only downsides to this are you're going to refill your glycogen stores quickly. So in a couple of days, you're going to see a jump in the scale weight, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So mentally, that may be difficult. You may also overshoot your true maintenance, which means, maybe your maintenance is actually a little lower than you're guessing it is. So you might gain a pound or two of actual body weight, not just water weight, while you try to figure out maintenance. Those are the two downsides, right? If you go slowly, the same things can happen. They just take longer. So your likelihood of overshooting maintenance and gaining 1 to 2 pounds is lower, because you kind of slowly creep up instead of just going straight back to it. So deciding which path really comes down to who you are, what your goals are. If you're an athlete, it may make more sense to go instantly because you need to get back to high-level performance. If you have a long history of dieting and quick scale changes can be upsetting to you, going slowly may make more sense. So it all comes down to context, but realize that either approach can work. Okay, so now let's talk about preventing rebound. That's topic 2. And this is a quote that I like to tell a lot of people. What gets you somewhere is not necessarily what keeps you there. So this is something that applies quite heavily to weight loss and the maintenance of weight loss / preventing weight gain. So when we think about weight loss, there's generally 2 things that drive whether or not people lose weight, right? There's a lot of things, but 2 primary ones. One, can you lower your current food intake, right? Can you reduce your calories lower than what you currently have? And can you increase your physical activity? right? If we boil it down, there's a lot to it, but simply those are kind of the two big levers we pull. For most people, reducing calorie intake is sufficient to induce pretty substantial weight loss. Now, what about weight maintenance? Well, it turns out that the other side of the coin, the physical activity piece, specifically your NEAT, so your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, which is the energy you expend outside of structured exercise, this becomes substantially more important for weight maintenance. So, for example, there have been several studies done on the participants from the Biggest Loser show, and these studies followed these people for years after the show, and they're trying to figure out why some people regained most of their weight and why some people kept most of it off. The biggest difference in all those studies has been that the people who maintained weight loss and those who didn't was actually their NEAT, right? It didn't really have anything to do with their food intake. A little bit did, but most of it was their NEAT level, so that physical activity. So, what that means is that, dieting is an important part of weight loss, and maintaining, your diet is a big part of weight maintenance, but your physical activity is actually maybe more important in weight maintenance and sustaining weight loss than the initial weight loss. So really, preventing weight gain is often highly dependent on your ability to sustain a higher level of physical activity over extended periods of time. So let's go to topic number 3. This is change your timelines. So this is just one of those mindset shifts that you have to make, is when you move from fat loss to maintenance, you really need to mentally separate the two, and especially when we talk about timelines. And there's several reasons for this. The first is that the timelines on fat loss and maintenance are way different, right? Fat loss is measured in weeks or months. Maintenance is measured in years or decades. So the habits that you develop for fat loss, they can help you with maintenance, but they're not enough, right? Maintenance needs to be viewed over a much larger time horizon and a more appropriate timeline. And things need to be more sustainable, right? This often means taking an honest look at your food intake and your exercise and recalibrating after weight loss to see if these are sustainable. And if they're not, make some adjustments, right? Like, I know that I can be super intense for 6, 8, 12, 14, 16 weeks, but doing that for 10 years, probably not reasonable, right? So here's an example. If you're at a 600 calorie a day deficit, you may be driving that by eating substantially less. Like, let's just say 1,500 calories, or by exercising substantially more. So like going to the gym and doing an extra 5 hours of cardio a week, or maybe you're doing both, right? You don't need to sustain your weight loss at 1,500 calories a day. You may be able to sustain your current body weight at 1,900 calories a day. This opens up more food freedom, right? You have more choices. But this also means you have to be more disciplined with that food freedom, right? You can't just be like, hey, I have more freedom, I'm going to just go above and beyond. That discipline to stay close to 1,900 has to last over years and decades, right? Not just a couple weeks. So compartmentalize maintenance and fat loss in your mind as different phases that require different habits and different timelines. Now, here's the next thing. After you stop weight loss and go into maintenance, your weight will go up a bit, and it isn't body fat. And you don't need to freak out or worry about it. Which brings me to my next point. Your lowest weight is not your forever weight. So this is the dirty little secret about fat loss, and it's probably going to upset you a little bit, but you need to hear it. When you hit the lowest weight on the scale you'll ever hit, it's an artificially low weight. You're probably running low on muscle glycogen, and you're probably a little dehydrated, and you probably, have completely clean bowels, and that's the lowest your body weight's ever going to hit. And it is not the actual low body weight you're going to have, right? Because it's kind of a fake low body weight, because it's your body's fully depleted, right? So when your body isn't depleted, it's probably just a few pounds heavier. So this is really important for you to understand. And here's an example, right? Let's say you started at 175 pounds and you dieted down to 125, right? I'm just throwing numbers out because it's easy to work in your head. Now, this is a huge amount of weight loss, right? And let's say the lowest number you saw on the scale was 125.6 when you weighed first thing in the morning after you finished a hard dieting cycle with low calories. And that day, you're like, hey, I made it. And then you move to maintenance, and you, in theory, consume your exact maintenance level, so your body fat won't change at all, and you do that for a week, your scale is probably going to go up 2 to 4 pounds. And this is just because you're no longer dehydrated and glycogen depleted. And so this is often where people get into a little bit of like panic mode, right? They'll email their coach and they'll be like, oh my God, I went to maintenance. All the hard work that took me the last 6 weeks to lose the last 2 pounds is all undone. I undid a whole 6 weeks of work in 4 days. And it's probably because you saw a 2 to 4 pound scale spike after you spent those last 6 weeks. But what you need to do is you need to realize this isn't body fat accumulation, right? Your body doesn't accumulate body fat that quick, and you're not actually backsliding. You're still going to have the same body comp you had 4 days ago. You just now have a normal amount of water, and you've kind of refilled your muscle glycogen stores. And you probably actually look better at 129 than you did at 125 because like your muscle bellies are full, right? That's why you always look better after a refeed day if you're like carb cycling. So that brings me to kind of the next point, and this is finding a better you, right? What I think people need to understand is maintenance is not about going back to the old ways. It's about finding a new path forward. And one of the things I always tell my clients when they start any health or fitness journey is this. One of the mindsets I want to steer you away from is, let me get this done so I can go back to my old ways. As far as we're concerned, old ways are gone. They're no longer part of who we are. That doesn't mean you don't get more flexibility, but like you're not going to go on a diet, lose weight so you can go back to doing exactly what you did before. Just not, you got to get that out of your head. So the goal with maintenance is really to find more sustainable, positive habits that allow you to thrive in kind of a balanced state and have the freedom and flexibility to live well, right? The goal is not to go back to the habits that put you there in the place you were before. The next concept is setting your window. So this is one of the most powerful kind of tools you can use in your head is think about your body weight not as a static number, but as a window in which you're going to kind of, your body's going to move, right? Days, weeks, months, years, your body's going to fluctuate, right? My body fluctuates 5 to 6 pounds over weeks, months, years, and my body comp stays within 1%, 2%, but it's kind of always fluctuating a little bit based on exercise volume, stress at work. I just kind of set a window in my mind and that's where my body weight needs to be. And so I want you to do this for a few reasons, right? When we set a target number, like let's say my body weight is 175 as a target number, a single number and any deviation from that in your head starts to mean failure. And this sets you up for failure for a few reasons. One is your body weight is dynamic, right? It changes minute to minute, hour to hour, and day to day, for reasons that are completely unrelated to your body mass, right? I know that if I go to the gym and I go play basketball for 2 hours, I can lose 7 pounds. I know that if I then come home, drink a bunch of water, shower, eat food, the next morning, I may be 2 pounds heavier than when I walked into the gym. So that's a 9-pound swing. It's not really body fat change. It's just your body status. Now, here's the other thing. After you go through dieting and you go into maintenance, you may add muscle, bone, glycogen, or other lean mass that's beneficial but adds to the scale, especially over 20, 30, 40 years, right? This has nothing to do with your fat mass, but it does add to scale weight. Like if you lose 50 pounds and then you spend 5 years working hard at maintenance, you may add 3 to 5 pounds of lean body mass. Some of it may be bone, connective tissue, things like that, and your scale weight's up, but you shouldn't be upset about it. So you should set like a target weight and instead of setting a target weight, you should set a window or an interval. So let's say, you had 145 pounds and that's your target goal weight. Maybe set an interval of 142 to 150 pounds. So that way, if your body weight drops below, more than 142 for a week, consider increasing your calorie intake. If it goes above 150 pounds for more than a week, then adjust food intake or increase energy expenditure, right? Think about that window so you're not always you're not chasing something, but you do understand, here's where my body likes to be and here's when I'm going to start making decisions, right? It's kind of like financially, right? Like, okay, when my bank account hits X, I'm going to change where I'm saving versus investing. If it goes below X, I'm going to start changing what I'm spending. Let's now talk about the problem of compounding. when you're in maintenance, you're going to have bad days or weeks. Like that's just human life. You're going to travel, you're going to go on vacation, you're going to be stressed. You're going to want to not cook food, you're going to eat out too much. Like it's life. It's going to happen, right? Don't let it turn into bad months or bad years. Bad days or weeks happen. Bad months or years are accumulation of decisions that you've continued to make. So when you think, about being in maintenance for a decade, you're going to have patches where you're unfocused or life hits you hard and you're going to go off path. It'll happen. It'll be inevitable. The trick is just don't let those turn into months or years. Sometimes you have extended periods where you can't be perfect and it comes down to damage control. That damage control is important. So make sure you don't just say, oh, well, it's bad, so I'll let it be bad, right? It's like if you max out your credit card, you're not going to just go take out another credit card, right? It's like you got to just figure out, okay, when am I going to just say, hey, let's just do damage control? And this is often something we see in clients is people will let a bad day compound into a bad week, month, year, and then decade, right? This is normal human behavior, right? It's not great human behavior, but it's kind of part of being human, right? We generally fall into feed forward patterns of behavior, and it can be very difficult to change course once we start down a path. And this is why it's important to pay attention to our daily choices and try to course correct them when we notice them. And then the last thing on this piece is, don't fall victim to the sunk cost fallacy. If you eat a Thin Mint, don't eat the whole box, right? Just take the loss and minimize that loss. Move forward towards your goals. Even if it's small step, a small step in the right direction is twice as good as a single step in the wrong direction, right? So a +1 is actually 2 more than a -1. So think about it that way. The next topic is forever isn't bad. The goal with all of our clients, and I would say probably 75% of them are there at this point, is we want to graduate them from coaching, right? We would love for them to stay forever as a business perspective. I always joke with our customer support team of like nobody's ever allowed to cancel. They just have to maintain their kind of coaching subscription with us indefinitely. But really, we want our coaching to empower our clients to control their lives after they leave coaching. And a big piece of this involves building habits that last for life, right? There will be periods, long periods, where people just don't track their food and they don't do a great job of going to the gym 5 days a week, hitting their exercise plan. But we don't need them to do that, right? On the flip side is there will never be periods where you don't get to pay attention to your habits at all, right? They never just get to go back to being what they were. You don't get to throw caution to the wind forever. Why is this? Because you'll build nutrition habits during your time of coaching with us, especially during fat loss or even on your own. But to sustain those nutrition habits, you have to repeat them, and that takes paying attention. If you stop paying attention, there will be consequences, right? Of the cause and effect type, not like I'm going to discipline you. So the analogy I like to tell people is this. Let's say you always have to pay attention to your finances in life, right? Even if you've dug yourself out of all your debt, you've done the Dave Ramsey thing, if that's your philosophy, you've set aside a good chunk of money in a savings account, you're saving for retirement, you have good cash flows, you still have to pay attention to your financials, right? Just 6 months of willy-nilly spending and not paying attention can land you in a bad spot. Nutrition is the same way, even in maintenance, right? You don't need to take your food scale everywhere you go, and you don't need to count out every grain of rice. I think there's that meme of like, I have 3 shrimp and 1,242 grains of rice, right? You don't have to do that. You don't have to count the grains of rice anyway when you're dieting, but it's kind of a funny meme. But on the flip side is you don't get a hall pass to just do whatever you want whenever you want. Like I wish you did. I wish that's how it worked. I wish you could just like diet for 6 weeks, get your dream body, and then just go crush whatever you want all the time. But that's just not how it works. One of the biggest things that we try to teach our clients, and that sets them up for success in maintenance, is to kind of own your life. And so this is kind of the last 2 pieces, right? Is tied in together. Own the decisions you make. Own the effort you put into things. Own your mistakes. And own your journey. If you do those 4 things, maintenance is good. That's it for the pod. That's maintenance in a nutshell. If you want an ebook specifically about this episode, yes, we had an ebook made. So you can download this. You can read it. Go to hub.macrosinc.net/maintenance-made-simple. I'm Dr. Brad. I'm out of here. I will see you guys later. Oh, and if you have any advice for other people that has been helpful for you in maintenance, throw it in the comments. If there's anything you disagree with, also put it in the comments. Excited to hear from you guys. Take care.